Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So here we go on another exciting episode of exciting educational episode of Tall Tales, exciting, interesting episode of Tall Tales. Did I leave anything out, Jose?
Just the kitchen sink.
All right. I'm looking around here for Facebook. I don't have any Facebook. Is Facebook turned on, Jose?
It's on. There it is now. Just showed up on mine.
All right. Yeah, I always like to have my Facebook operative here because it's a real assistance in carrying out this show. Right over here. All I've got is a picture of the ocean. Is there something wrong?
That's this morning's, I think. Yeah, maybe refresh the page. It just popped up on mine.
All right. All I've got is a picture of the ocean. Is there something wrong?
There you go. That's you.
Yeah, I got it on my iPad. Let's see if I can get it on the desktop. Just yesterday's show. Just give me a minute here. I want to see if Facebook always makes everything as hard as they possibly can, don't they? I finally got it. Yeah, quite a few people beat me to it. Rico and Lanny and Bonnie Suba and Vince Pareto. You guys are better at it than I am, I guess. Dave Duenas, Vince Pereira. Okay, so let's turn now to Zemi Ikotny. I'm going to be spending a lot of time on this part of the agenda for today. I wonder if I'll even get to the card. The Daily News has run its usual bowl of pablum for today. Or actually, it probably isn't even that exciting. You know, the poster child for Daily News editorials is a guy named Casper Milquetoast. And
sounds exciting.
The editorial writer's favorite movie is Walter Mitty. If you remember that old movie.
The Secret Life.
Secret Life of Walter Mitty. So here we go. Our view. Congratulations to UOG's Sea Grant pioneers. And once again, it would make an interesting news story for probably 20% of the people that read the paper. As far as an editorial is concerned, it's not worth the time of day. Now, we had some really interesting letters to editors, and I'm going to spend some time on them. As an example, we had a lady named Joni Kanga Kerr write a letter to the Daily News saying, reproductive rights integral to opportunity in healthcare. Reproductive rights.
That sounds like a great title, but I'm going to assume that the rest of the article or op-ed has nothing to do with reproduction.
Not a thing, except the ability to stop it in its tracks. Then I've got a letter here from Shaylin Salas that is kind of the soft approach to cultural Marxism.
Or how to write an entire column full of platitudes.
Exactly. And then I've got one that I plucked from the Pacific Island Times, which I'm always pumping over here because they run my column. If you haven't read the column that ends up with, it's not what Levin did, it's what Levin didn't do. You want to pick up a copy of Pacific Island Times right now, but the publisher of Pacific Island Times put something in the paper like this: there's no such thing as pro-abortion.
This one really missed the mark.
Really. Now, you know, I think that the guy that invented the pretzel must have hung out with a lot of these pro-abortionists to see how you could start out with something that's really straight, easy to understand, kind of crunchy if you bite into it, and twist it around to the point that you don't even recognize what it was when it began. The pretzel maker. That's what I'm going to start calling these pro-aborters, the pretzel makers. Yeah, and then maybe the most interesting one of all is a battle of a columnist and a letter writer that if it were on the card, maybe I'll just call it part of the card. It's Ginger Crunden Cruz versus Lee Weber. Now, you may not remember Ginger Crunden Cruz, former newscaster on KOAM. But they made a really good Western serial kind of patterned after Ginger Crunden Cruz. It starred Richard Boone. It was a Western starring Richard Boone, and the title of it was Have Gun Will Travel. You remember that one, Jose?
I know the title. I don't recall the program.
Yeah. And then as part of the kind of the lead into the show, it showed Richard Boone's business card. It says Wire Paladin, San Francisco. So the 21st century of it, version of it is Have Gun Will Travel. Wire Ginger, Washington, D.C. Or email Ginger, Washington, D.C. This one is really interesting. But I think I'm going to start out with, I'm not even going to go to the card until I finish with Demi Cotney here. I'm going to start out with the separatist approach to cultural Marxism. And this is the title. This is Shaylin Salas, a name I've never heard before. A just future to right an unjust past. So he kind of got an idea where this is pure grievance politics from the start to the finish. It requires sort of a journalistic bottle of Tums because there's so much acid eating through the paper here, right?
For me, it's I need somebody to give me some reading glasses because it's just not really in focus for me right now.
Yeah.
Not sure where he's getting to, or her.
Well, and that's kind of the beauty of it. It's one of these, let's slide it along, let's slide some of these. It isn't exactly gaslighting, but
It's a filler.
I have a feeling this isn't exactly gaslighting, but the next in the series will be apparent gaslighting. Here it goes. It was in 1565 that Spanish conquerors took Guam as a formal possession. She put that in quotes, took Guam as a formal possession. They took us. Wow, I didn't realize Shaylin Salas was that old. That's like well over 400 years old. If she is, I'd sure as hell like to know how she did it.
Well, they apparently brought her back.
Yeah. We were stolen from each other and from ourselves. Today, that makes 457 years of theft. Shall we call 911, Jose? That's 457 years of occupation, exploitation, and violence. Now remember, Jose, speech can be violence. Yeah. 457 years of imperial propaganda, cultural suppression, environmental destruction. 457 years, too long, of being denied our rights as human beings and as indigenous people of this island. Now, Sherilyn, if you could call us up and tell me what human rights, what rights have you been denied here on the island of Guam? I know we've had the Bill of Rights in the Organic Act since 1950. The Mink Amendments made the Constitutional Bill of Rights applicable to the island. Seems to me that that's about all the rights you get here in the United States, which probably is known as the country in which citizens have the most rights. But she's been denied our rights. Now, you see, Jose, the pronoun there, she hasn't been denied her rights. Denied our rights. This is what I mean by this, the slippery, not overt gaslighting, but she lets you know she's not talking about herself. There's a larger dimension here. This is getting you, well, the whole first paragraph, there might as well be a sentence at the beginning that says, let's talk about identity politics, because, of course, that's the whole first paragraph. How do we right such an insidious wrong? Okay, a leading question. You know, in order to answer the question, you have to agree with the premise.
I don't see a thesaurus in the bibliography here. Insidious?
Yeah. How do we right hundreds of years of pain beyond measure? Well, I suggested journalistic Tums for the first paragraph. Perhaps a journalistic aspirin would work in the second paragraph. So this is all hyperbole, of course. And to call it a hyperbole isn't even quite fair, not to her, but to the word hyperbole. People are saying, oh, is this what hyperbole meant? Gosh, I've heard other people say the things were hyperbole, and it wasn't like this.
This is hyperbole through a black and white television.
Exactly. She asks, how do we begin to heal? I think part of the answer is that we already are. By living on our home island. Now, whose home island is this, Jose's? Is it mine? I don't think so.
It's R.
Our.
Maybe she's a pirate.
And by living on our home island, by telling our stories, by working generously with our land, give the land back to the original owners. And by joyously by our ocean. Now, I didn't know that you could actually own the ocean. I have never seen any for sale signs floating around out in the ocean. She goes on by saying, by singing our songs, especially the ones that were invented after 1980, by standing up for one another, by dancing barefoot beneath a sky full of stars. We are healing and we are writing. Now we kind of go from identity politics to some of this self-actualization, be all you can be, self-help type program here. Another part of the answer is to move forward. Move forward in a way that echoes voices from the past, present, and evermore. Move forward in a way that promotes adequate health care and social services. Now, I got a feeling I know what adequate health care is, Jose. Adequate health care and social services, and rejects irresponsible development and environmental degradation. In a way that and then she goes on to say, in a way that focuses on the collective rather than individual. I want you to tie a string around your brain for the word collective. Okay, collective. Now, in the United States, do we recognize group rights? We're kind of sliding that way, but at least in theory we don't. What is it that the Bill of Rights protects? Is it the rights of individuals or the rights of groups?
Individuals.
Individuals. Do we talk in terms of individual freedom or the collective?
The individual.
Now, if you want to talk about the collective, where do you have to go for that one?
A hornet's nest.
How about his initials are Karl Marx. It's all about the collective.
But if they thought in that sense, that's colonialistic.
Not if they adopt it themselves.
Yeah,
because
I see.
You remember during the Cold War, the greatest champions of anti-colonialism was the Soviet Union. They were, and in a sense, you could give them a credit. You can give them some of the credit for the wave of anti-colonialism that came along, because they constantly pushed it. And in the United States, we had our own reputation. We had our place in the world. We thought we were the good guys. We wanted to be recognized as the good guys. We'd invite African diplomats to come to the United States, and they'd have to ride in the back of the bus or go and get their chow at the rear of the restaurant. So, these are the kinds of things that really moved the conscience of the country.
Well, see, this is the question I have then. What is their definition of colonialism then?
Colonialism is any time Western European people take charge of a piece of land, some real property somewhere that is inhabited by other than Europeans, where the Europeans control at least some of the government of the non-Europeans. That's their definition of colonialism. Now, it's not the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, where they did exactly the same thing.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
They did exactly the same thing, because many of those Soviet Socialist republics were not inhabited by Europeans. But there was no question in anybody's mind that they were all run from the Kremlin. So, but the key word here is the collective. The first word of Communist Party gives you an idea what collective means. Commune, communism. We've got to live in the collective. We don't advance individual rights. We're looking out for the commune, for the greater good of everybody, to each according to his needs, from each according to his ability. The more you can do, the more you have to do, because that's your job. That's the socialist man that the communists are intended. And I mentioned yesterday, socialism is not just an economic system. It's not just a political system. It's a psychological system where they're going to, over time, they will change human nature, and they will take the wretched beasts that we are now and turn us into what they call the socialist man, who is far superior to what we have now. And of course, it will be the collective.
Which goes back to your question of who is our.
Yeah.
It depends on how the collective is defined.
Well, I think we know how the collective is defined. It's tautanu.
But who decides what that collective is defined by?
I've heard tautanu na anay mafaisin guino hadzi tautau tomorrow, and the answer is always we know who we are. Yeah, but definition, a small thing, right? But you could, if you read carefully, you can see exactly where she's going. She's heading towards the collective in a way that focuses on the collective rather than the individual, and functions to regenerate rather than to extract. Sustainability. In a way that recognizes the wrong. And the wrong was 457 years long. So even a blind man ought to be able to recognize it. Because only a just future can right an unjust past. So if you sign up for her presentation that there was 457 years of unjust past, then it's your responsibility to provide a just future. Now, this sounds an awful lot like anti-racism, doesn't it? This sounds an awful lot like critical race theory. And the reason that it does is because it is. It's just coated with some asukat, maybe a little bit of honey. Let's take a short break and we'll come back to the collective.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning shows.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Subway's Eat Fresh Refresh brings you the sequel to the Sweet Onion Chicken Teriyaki. Enjoy the new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki. Delight your taste buds with tender, juicy steak marinated in the tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce and stacked high on toasted artisan Italian bread, topped with American cheese, green peppers, red onions, and drizzled with the tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce. The new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki is the height of food craveability. Give in to your cravings at Subway. Eat fresh.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Well, I just took a peek at Facebook here. Jose and Lonnie Salas disavows any knowledge of Shaylin Salas. I don't blame her. If I were a Salas, I'd do the same thing. Okay, only a just future can right an unjust past. Anti-racism. So what should our just future look like? For it to be truly just, it must be designed by and for the people of today. Now, who do you suppose the people of today are?
The collective.
Yeah. Ta'anun, eh? And then people of today. Now, this is a subtle way to do the same thing that the that the neo-Marxists are doing in the mainland, trashing the founding fathers, the wise heads in our civilization, the graybeards, pardon the expression, Jose. So they're saying all of the stuff that we did before, we just got to junk that. Because they're saying it's got to be designed by and for the people of today. So these old ideas like Bill of Rights, separation of powers, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, no. And she goes on to say, let us leave old decision-making ways behind. Same thing. And explore something new. This is all Marxist. You know, we've been beaten up, we've been punished, we've been oppressed. The system is corrupt. We've got to junk the old system, and all of the old the people that put together the old system have to be trashed, and we've got to explore something new. So, you know, the theory of Marxism is that people aren't going to embrace it if they think they're living pretty well. You got to, as Frenchie pointed out yesterday, you've got to create that chaos, the confusion, so that the communists can come sweeping in to the rescue. So let us leave old decision-making ways behind and explore something new, something more sustaining, something more compassionate, however that may look and feel for you, for us. Let us listen to each other. Let us reflect on our history, the 457 years of being crapped on. Let us sit in our oceans and in our jungles. Let us hold our Sina close and our Famagutlan closer. Let us hold space for one another every day in all ways possible. The wonderful thing is that there are already people taking these actions. We know who they are. Yeah, Bavakwa, Sauder, our favorite, Hope Cristobal. So then Salas is saying, reach out to them. Reach out to the local groups and organizations that strive to build a stronger and more resilient Guam. Reach out to them. Learn from them. Volunteer your time with them. Join them. Protest what deserves protesting. Rest when you need resting, and help others at every chance you get. So that's the lead up. Now we're going to get to the punchline here. She kind of lets her mask drop a little bit. She says, I don't know what Guahan's future will look like, but I do know that the current political status and governing systems do not serve us.
What? The system allowed you to write this article.
Yeah. And if we're doing identity politics, it certainly doesn't serve the Chamorros. Why? It's so that Chamorro can't get elected to...
Nope.
No, that's not right. Chamorros, I was just talking with Kathy Calvo the other day about how hard it is for Chamorros to succeed in... Well, it doesn't matter. You have to see everything through the correct lens. And the lens here...
That's exactly what it is.
Yes.
Because, and I know that there's a wrap-up to this that gets a little more specific.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I did not live on Guam, let's say I lived in, England, London, England, and I read this article, I'd be like, who the heck is this? What are they talking about? What systems? What exactly are they saying? Because they said a lot of stuff that's like general. but I see nothing specific here. Sounds good because it's a lot of platitudes, not hyperbole.
And it's slippery. It slides in.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. It slides in from the very beginning. In 1565, the Spanish conquerors took Guam as a formal possession. They took us. They took us.
You don't even have to define what that means because already it means something to that person only.
Yeah.
But nobody can... How can I gain sympathy for this writer if I have no idea what they're talking about?
Well, of course, they know what they're talking about. She's only targeting one audience. She's not talking to you and me.
She's talking to herself.
Well, she's talking about the separatists. That's who she's talking to. This is the Separatist Manifesto.
Well, yeah, that's what we're assuming because we know the direction this person is coming from.
Yeah.
But again, it means nothing.
To those who aren't tuned in on the separatist lingo. Yeah, it means a lot to them. You know, reach out to them. Reach out to local groups and organizations that strive to build a stronger and more resilient Guam. Learn from them. Volunteer your time to them. Join them. Protest what deserves protesting. Rest when you know. So it's a call to action.
Eat your vegetables.
Yeah, it's a call to action for every tomorrow on this island. If you're not with them already, it's time that you signed up. Then she goes on to say this: I don't know what Guahan's future will look like, but I do know that the current political status and governing systems do not serve us. I don't know what Guahan's future will look like or even what it should look like, but I do know it's going to be unlike anything we've seen before. The People's Democratic Socialist Republic of Guahan. That's what she's saying. It's going to be unlike anything we've seen before because we've never lived in a communist state. I can feel it deep in my bones. I hope that we will face it, embrace it, and design it together. Yeah, so I'm a careful reader. I'm an analytical reader, and I picked up on this. You know, at the very beginning, this is it's going to be at a level of deception that we're not all that familiar with.
And you got that exactly on the head. This is a full blown out piece of deception, and they reveal it at the very end. What you're supposed to be doing.
Playing on the sympathies of everybody, a little group identification. Yeah, we've all been suffering. We're second-class citizens, and that whole rhetoric. Bavak was columns every week until he decided to start writing about the museum every week, and Laura Saudo almost every week.
I'm going to treat this like a timeshare.
A timeshare.
The collective is the timeshare.
Exactly.
And you're going out there to listen to the pitch.
Exactly.
And they don't tell you everything that's included in the timeshare collective. But as soon as you sign your name to the dotted line, you are stuck.
Exactly.
And that's what this was.
Yep.
A pitch for a timeshare.
Yeah.
And we all know how timeshares
and we all know what the name of the timeshare is going to be. It's going to be called the Marxist Arms Building.
And if you want to leave it, you can't because you just became a part of the collective.
Exactly. Okay, next I've got a letter to the editor from Joni Kanga Kerr, who's part of that group, one of the Protehi Latexan gang and all of those things, right? I'm not going to go too far with this, but I wonder if she knows that Zangin Ontongo no Inaanya Gifino English Gifino Chamorro Gutlago. Her last name is Kerr. Yeah. And not even a nice pet dog, just a motley old cur.
That's the curveball in this discussion.
Yeah. In 2019, senators of the 35th Guam legislature submitted their citizen-centric report to the CCR, to the Office of the Public Auditor, in which they committed to supporting the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. What a stupid mistake. Anytime you see the words United Nations, run. Especially when you're talking about United Nations goals. Since 2015, the 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, have been a blueprint for nations to end poverty and improve health and education, reduce inequality, spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and working to preserve our oceans and forests. Sounds like the Democrat Party. The CCR report states that Guam Congress building recycles water, implements solar energy, and electronic transmission of documents, reduces paper consumption. I'm so happy for them. These efforts are fine. However, one wonders if the senators paid attention to the other SDGs, specifically Goal 1, end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Anyone who would sign up for this as a goal, end poverty in all its forms everywhere. You know, I was on my way in, I looked up at the sky, and I'd never seen it before, but there was this great big apple pie up there. The darndest thing I ever seen, Jose.
Here's pie in your eye.
Yeah, pie in the sky. Let's take a short break here. It's time for a break, and I want to see who I've got I got another Joe wants to talk about the collective. We'll let you in on another Joe right after the break, and then I'll go back to Ms. Kerr.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarte Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
The Super American Circus is here, and Circle K is giving away free Circus Kids tickets. Drop by your closest Circle K location and get up to 4 tickets absolutely free. So come one, come all, and enjoy free tickets to the greatest show on Island today. Circle K, take it easy. Ticket is valid for kids 12 years old or younger. Must be accompanied by a purchased adult or VIP ticket.
Okay, so here we are. I'm going to take a break from Joni Kanga Kerr and chat with another Joe for a moment here. He wants to talk about the collective. Go ahead, another Joe.
Okay, so it's like you said. Who are they talking about when they say our anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who's going to be in charge of that? Presuming they're referring to Chamorro interests because they are representing Chamorro interests on the what they determine as the Chamorro homeland. So who is going to be in charge of the Chamorro Enough Committee in their decision making process and how they're going to define who is Chamorro Enough? And then my advice as in general to step back and look at the big picture to the people who presumably want to do good, not exactly sure how to go about it, is stay Christian. If you can't stay Christian, we're going to have big problems because we're going to have disagreements, and God forbid worse. We're going to disagree in talking to each other, and God forbid it gets worse than disagreeing just talking. So if they can stay Christian, then they'll probably minimize anything, because usually Christians, the theology is to be inclusive of everyone in Christianity. And I don't think any communist movement ever tolerated Christianity. When the communists took over Russia, the first thing they did was they got rid of the Tsar, and he's the figurehead of the I don't know if they had a Russian church.
The Russian Orthodox Church, and they trashed the churches in Russia. Only very few of them survived. And if you study Marxism, you know that the first thing that they've got to get rid of is religion, especially Christianity, because Christianity and Marxism cannot survive together. So that's always their first goal. And I've mentioned before that all of these seemingly independent occurrences, these isolated events, are not. They're all connected. So the sexual anarchy that we're seeing right now, that a man can marry a man, that it's okay to kill a baby in a womb, this is all gaslighting Christianity. It's their way of dumping on Christianity, and it's really working, because the percentage of people in the United States that are Christians now has gone down a whole lot. And if you follow the Catholic theological tracks, they've even gotten a pope on their side. It's a new world order and all of that stuff. So the standard Marx doctrine, Jose, is that, Joe, standard Marx doctrine is that religion is the opium of the people, that it must be destroyed because it allows people to endure that which they should not endure, capitalist oppression. They've got to dump their oppressors. Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. And that's exactly where we are today. We're living in it now, except it's not the old classic Marxism. It's neo-Marxism, as made known to us by the Frankfurt School, Antonio Gramsci, and Herbert Marcuse, amongst others, and a huge population of useful idiots who think they're doing something smart by embracing this stuff.
I agree, Bob. And one quick point before I stop and just listen is if you do a comparison of what you think it's going to evolve into and something positive, the closest thing I can think of is Japan. Japan, they have I think it's citizenship by I'm not sure. It's not by birth. It's by ethnicity.
It's called jus sanguinis, law of the blood. If you are,
you and French, you were talking about it, I think, for a while.
Yeah, if you are Japanese, it doesn't matter where you're born. You are a Japanese citizen. If you're not Japanese, you could be born in the nicest hospital in Tokyo. You ain't Japanese.
Mm. Okay, Bob, thanks for your time. I'll just keep listening now.
All right, good talking to you, another Joe.
Simply, I liken all these articles as competing with John Lennon's Imagine.
Yeah.
Except for they don't have nice music behind it.
Yeah, the melody isn't there. Yeah. There's no countries and yeah. Okay. So Joni Kanga Kerr says these efforts are fine. However, one wonders if senators paid attention to the other SDGs. Now, the first goal, of course, is to eliminate poverty. Let's see, what was that? End poverty in all its forms everywhere. Now, I know exactly how you would do that if the collective is the governance, not individual rights. Now, you take a guy like, guys like Bill Gates and Elon Musk. These men have billions of dollars. They've got so much more that they would ever need in any stretch of the imagination. They've got too much. And there are a lot of people that don't have any at all. So what we need to do is just do some leveling. We'll just take Bill Gates, Elon Musk, you, me, everybody we know, take us down to one notch above poverty. And that way we can cure poverty everywhere in all its forms. So easy. Why hasn't anyone thought of it before?
Again, you mentioned Christianity, right, and the destruction of it, but this is the antithesis of Christianity, because again, it belongs to the collective, not the individual.
Yes.
And solving poverty has never been about the collective.
No, it hasn't. Well, that's the pitch. It's the timeshare ad, right? Okay, so Joni goes on to say, goal 3, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. You know, healthcare. I remember Senator Leon Guerrero, used to have a sign in her office that said, healthcare is a right, not a privilege, which means that doctors, sorry, you're not going to get paid for what you do. You guys out there, GRMC, sorry. Healthcare is a right, so it's your duty to make sure everybody gets good healthcare.
Well, that's the part two of these regulating the profits of the fuel companies.
Absolutely.
They need to start regulating the profits of the medical community.
Yeah.
Right? It's
well,
only fair.
For consistency, yeah. Goal 5, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Well, you know, this whole thing, why would anybody in 2015 in the legislature vote for this? Obviously, they didn't read it. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. Well, it's United Nations. It's kind of like the insular cases. The insular cases are racist. Well, I'll sign that resolution. Let's get rid of the insular cases. You know, democracy is a wonderful system. You sometimes wonder how it has managed to survive, you know, with the level of, I'm not going to use the word idiocy, but the level of uninformed people who are responsible for big decisions in a democracy. Achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Target 6. Ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive health and reproductive rights. Okay, so I guess that would mean things like, well, right here in the local scene, really fix up the birth and delivery room at GMH, the maternity ward, so to speak. Yeah, make sure that every woman gets good prenatal care, that we have workshops set up to help women make sure that after the child is born, they get the child off to a good start. All of these things, that would be reproductive care, wouldn't it, Jose?
Nope. Reproductive care is abortion and population control. But that's not how we're talking about it. It has nothing to do with what you talked about.
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
You know, reproductive care means killing babies before they're born.
And again, the collective decides how many are allowed to be born.
Exactly. Yeah. So, going on, pending anti-abortion legislation indicates that senators either paid only lip service to the SDGs or chose to ignore their commitment. Their commitment. UN woman. Wait, I could read it. Unwomen. It's tempting. Unwomen, the entity seeking to globally establish the SDG goals. I'll bet that's a nice group, right? Released the following statement on June 24. Reproductive rights are women's rights and human rights. Reproductive rights are integral to women's rights, a fact that is upheld by international agreements and reflected in law in different parts of the world. To be able to exercise their human rights, killing babies is one of the human rights, and make essential decisions, women need to be able to decide freely and responsibly on the number and spacing of their children and to have access to information, education, and services. That reminds me of Vanessa Williams, who has been heard to say it is impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. She goes even a little bit farther than the unwomen. When safe and legal access to abortion is restricted, women are forced to resort to less safe methods. And they always trot this one out. You know, there should be a picture of a coat hanger now that I should hold up a coat hanger in front of the camera, right? Unsafe back alley abortions. Too often with damaging or disastrous results, especially for women who are affected by poverty or marginalization. Boy, this one of my favorite breakfast snacks when I go to a restaurant is I like to order like whole wheat toast or rye toast and orange marmalade. But you don't find orange marmalade very often. Is that what they're talking about with all this marginalization?
Well, it is jamming up things.
Yeah, boy, it just seems to be that nobody can talk about any issue anymore without deciding that that group is marginalized.
I find it very interesting that they talk about these social issues, poverty, marginalized people, and their solution is abortion.
We're just not killing enough people.
Yeah, we're not killing enough babies.
Yeah. So especially for women who are affected by poverty or marginalization, including minority women. You got to play the race card.
My response is Margaret Sanger.
Yeah. The ability of women to control what happens to their own bodies is also associated with the roles women are to play in society, whether as a member of the family, the workforce, or the government. And I think she's let an important cat out of the bag here, too. This is more, believe it or not, as horrible as this sounds, this is more important than just killing babies in the womb. This is showing you who's boss. This is showing you who cannot be pushed around. Because if I can kill a baby inside my own body, you have absolutely no power over me whatsoever. And I'll do what the hell ever I please. That's the real motivating factor behind all this abortion stuff.
There's kind of a conundrum with the first op-ed by Salas, because they talk about justice of going back to the old ways and the injustice of getting rid of the old traditional ways. And I don't believe a career woman was part of the traditional old ways.
No, it wasn't.
No, so this is a little bit of modernistic, almost like a colonized mindset.
Very modernistic. Very modernistic, yeah. So the ability of women to control what happens to their own bodies is also associated with roles women are able to play in society, whether as a member of the family, the workforce, or the government. Let's go to the big halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
He says, bring it on. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Former President Trump in a late Thursday night statement saying he does not oppose the public release of the warrant used to raid his home last week and the FBI's affidavit to support it.
It is, quote, encouraging the immediate release of those documents. Earlier Thursday, Attorney General Merrick Garland asked a judge to unseal that warrant, saying public interest leaned heavily in favor of unsealing it. That request remains with a Florida judge, but it is unclear at this point just how much information would be included with those documents.
Fox's Sean Lanchel, Attorney General Merrick Garland made a brief appearance yesterday, his first since the Monday raid, and revealed he had signed off on the search and said,
more information will be made available in the appropriate way and at the appropriate time.
But Christina Bobb, a member of Mr. Trump's legal team, says the Attorney General owes the American public a full explanation now.
This is what the Democrats do. They don't have any good reason for doing what they did. The pathetic presser that Merrick Garland held for 3 minutes was insufficient.
And Bob dismisses a report that a Secret Service agent may have been the source who told the FBI where to look and when. The Ohio State Patrol has identified as 42-year-old Ricky Schiffer, the man who tried to barge into an FBI office in Cincinnati yesterday.
The FBI says the suspect tried to get through the visitor's entrance. Local reports indicate he made a threat before taking off in a car. State Patrol says the suspect stopped on a rural road where Schiffer exchanged gunfire with police.
Fox's Matt Finn reports Schiffer was killed in that exchange. Actress Anne Heche, injured in a car accident Friday, will likely not recover, according to her spokesman, who says she sustained a severe brain injury. She's on life support while her organs are evaluated for possible donation. America is listening to Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title. A power of attorney can be a useful tool in a real estate transaction, but if abused, it can result in devastating loss. Choosing your representative should be done with the utmost care and should be very specific about the powers being granted. To mitigate loss, the team at Security Title confirms with the owner prior to using a power of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
There are some big changes in the advice from government health experts about COVID-19 precautions.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is now updating a landslide of COVID-19 recommendations. Among them, telling non-infected Americans quarantine if they come into close contact with someone who has the virus, while also ending calls for social distancing. But why the changes? The CDC citing roughly 95% of people 16 years old and up now have at least some form of COVID-19 immunity from vaccines by catching the virus or both. Jill Nato, Fox News.
California's Governor Gavin Newsom proposing the state should invest tens of billions of dollars in water recycling, storage, and desalinization over the next 2 years, next 2 decades, that is. To shore up its supplies, the state gets hotter and drier. It comes as the drought continues to grip the U.S. West, and the state prepares to lose 10% of its water supply by the year 2040. A big city art museum in California says it will return some ill-gotten works of art.
The J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles returning some ancient sculptures and other works of art that were illegally exported from Italy. The museum announcing Thursday that it will ship back a nearly life-size group of statues known as Orpheus and the Sirens next month. 4 other pieces will follow at a later date, including a giant marble head, an incense burner, an ancient mold for making pendants, and a 19th century painting. The museum saying that all are believed to have been illegally excavated or removed from Italy. Paul Stevens, Fox News.
The Kremlin refusing to announce a full-blown mobilization as Russia suffers military losses in its invasion of Ukraine, which is now nearing the 6-month mark. Such a move could be very unpopular for President Putin. Russia instead engaging in covert recruitment efforts, including using prisoners to make up for the manpower shortage. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all 3.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Tremendous halftime shows, and of course during the halftime show we ran an ad for the Tall Tales store, and I'm still negotiating with Jose for the beard. I don't think I'm going to be able to cut a deal.
There may be limited editions, but I don't know.
It looks like I'm not going to be able to work something out with Jose, but on Monday I'm going to open the Tall Tales store. So on Monday, you're going to be able to, if you're tuned in here, you're going to be able to go online and buy a Tall Tales T-shirt. Let me rephrase it. Nobody's going to want to buy just a Tall Tales T-shirt. Buy your Tall Tales shirts, right? Yeah, I suppose most families going to want to have 2, 3, 4 of them for every member. It's not too early to start stocking up for Christmas. Friends and relatives in the mainland, yeah, you know, because
and add it to your wish list.
Absolutely. Our international radio listening audience out there, you're included too. Think of, Frenchie was mentioned the day before yesterday that he was in Andorra. It's just a really enchanting country in the Pyrenees Mountains between France and Spain. He was with friends and they were listening to Tall Tales Facebook up in the Pyrenees. So it's truly an international radio listening audience. And think of how cool it would be to be strolling down the main street of Andorra la Vella. That's the capital. Wearing your brand new Tall Tales T-shirt. It couldn't get any better than that, I don't think. Okay, so back to si Zoni Kanga Gatlag. Kerr. Dispensa. Okay, Bonnie wants to know what an unwoman is. And Bonnie, when I was reading this, one of the sentences starts out with UN, capital UN, women. And I said, I could read this unwomen and it would work just as well. I think that's true. Especially given the fact that a nominee to the United States Supreme Court doesn't know what a woman is. Not being a biologist, what kind of expectations could we have? So, picking up where I left off here before the big halftime show, I'm starting right out with unwomen, UN women. I think unwomen is really better. Unwomen remain steadfast in our determination to ensure that the rights of women and girls are fully observed and enjoyed worldwide, every place except in the womb, where half the abortions more than half the abortions will be suffered by those of the female sex. And we look forward to continued evidence-based engagement with our partners everywhere in support of rapid progress towards universal enjoyment of universal rights. Now, this is the logical fallacy, the so-called appeal to authority. So the way this one works is Joni comes along and says, you know, I'm going to tell you these things, and you really should agree with me. But if you don't, I'm going to pull out the big guns, the big cannon. Here's what the United Nations says. Now what do you think? Are you going to go against the advice of the United Nations? And in my case, the answer to that question is you damn betcha better believe it. I can't think of anything I would more readily oppose than anything advanced by the United Nations. And somehow I don't think I'm alone on that one either. Community struggles, subhead, is our community struggles with insufficient reproductive health care. Insufficient. In other words, we ain't got no abortionists on the island. One of the highest rates of sexual violence in the nation, high numbers of teen and child pregnancies, and nearly 1 in 4 women living in poverty. It's disturbing that politicians chose to support Bill 291 that does absolutely nothing to alleviate pressing circumstances. So let me read you a list of problems here in the community. See if you could suggest a solution, Jose. Okay, a high rate of sexual violence in the nation. What would be the remedy for that?
Abortion.
Abortion.
Yeah.
Because.
Well, that's just a. The UN said it.
Yeah, and would take all the fun out of sexual violence.
No, that has nothing to do with it.
Oh.
We're talking about reproductive rights.
Yeah. Okay, high numbers of teen and child pregnancies.
Abortion.
Yeah. And nearly 1 in 4 women living in poverty.
Clearly abortion.
Yeah. If they were able to have more abortions,
they'll have more money.
They'd have more money, and they could climb out of poverty, right?
Abortions cost how much? $1,500?
Yeah.
Kind of circular there.
So, you know, the same theme runs through all of these things, and it's gruesome. And it's mean, but it's really what it is. And that is all of the solutions that these pretzels, these pro-abortion folks offer, the solution is always, or the problem is always, we're not killing enough babies. You know, if there are babies born in poor families, we just kill them before they're born. Then there won't be as many babies born in poor families. It's so simple. It's so mean. It's so rude. It's so repulsive. And yet, it's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. That's why we have to be able to kill babies on demand. Now, you see, they know what the solution is, but obviously members in the legislature don't. Because Joni goes on to say, it's disturbing that politicians chose to support Bill 291 that does absolutely nothing to alleviate these pressing circumstances. Well, how could they be so stupid? You know, and they're always enacting these bills that have absolutely nothing to do with solving those problems. You know, like putting stop signs out on the back road. How is that going to solve any of these problems?
Just about 8 or 9 hours ago, they arrested 5 gentlemen for stabbing another person, and he died.
Yeah, I read that, yeah.
I hope that solved at least one case of poverty.
Yeah.
See,
well,
if we put it in those terms, it doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't.
But that's the logic they're trying to use here.
The so-called logic, exactly. Guam's heartbeat bill copies the Texas law that prohibits abortion when a fetal heartbeat is detected. Bill 291 would allow private citizens to bring civil action against anyone who provides abortion services, including abortion medication via telemedicine. It was authored by Senator Talina Nelson, co-sponsored by Shelton, Duenas, Blas, and Ada. So we're finally getting to the punchline here, aren't we? Don't vote for these guys, because they're not. We'll never be able to kill enough babies if these guys have their way. A consequence of 291 is that it will erode health care if doctors hesitate to provide treatment for fear their actions might be flagged for litigation. Well, according to David Lebowski, that hasn't worked up until now. It has no effect on physicians at all.
Zero.
Yeah. For example, a dilation and curettage is routinely used to remove tissue from the uterus after a miscarriage or an abortion. However, it is also used to diagnose and resolve abnormal bleeding that may not have anything to do with a pregnancy.
Then what's the problem?
If a patient does not receive timely care because their physician, we don't know what sex this patient is, right? That's why we have to use their physician needs to consult an attorney.
So false.
Or refuses treatment, this places them in a high-risk, life-threatening situation. This is now a reality for patients in the states that have banned or restricted abortions.
Completely false.
Assuming that SDG commitment was not a one-off gesture and that it is binding to the current legislature, it should be clear to all its sitting senators of the 36th and all legislative candidates that supporting fundamental reproductive rights was and still is a commitment promulgated by the 35th. Note that Senators Nelson and Shelton were members of the 35th. You know, not only does she not know anything about reproductive rights, she doesn't know anything about the law and the legislature either. The the UNWomen's statement implies that without reproductive rights, a person is subject to the whims of the state and denied the opportunity to decide the best path for themselves, which affects their family and community. Without reproductive rights, people remain in poverty and lack proper care. Without reproductive rights, there is no anafa malik for anyone, including the baby. Yeah, that's quite a piece. It took her a while there to get to the point. Shelton, Duenas, Blas, and Ada. Don't vote for him. All right, let me see who's... I probably got... no, it's not a phone call?
It's a phone call.
Okay, let me just check and see who's waiting here in the green room. Another Joe.
That's my merry-go-round.
Oh, okay. Yes, another Joe. What did you want to tell me this time?
Okay, Bob. Isn't it fair to say that every pregnancy, there's a high health risk? So she needs to clarify exactly what she's suggesting is she suggesting all babies should be aborted, or is there a difference?
I think that she's saying every baby that the mother doesn't want must be aborted. End of story.
But what about the ones? So the ones that she does want, is there any difference in the risk, or is it the same risk?
I don't know. I don't know. I suspect that the risk is about the same. You know, childbirth, you know, even at the time I was born was fairly risky. And 40 years before I was born, it was very risky. A lot of women died in childbirth. A lot of children died just shortly after childbirth. But from what I know about it now, having a baby is, you know, about as risky as having a colonoscopy, which is not risky at all.
So I think she needs to clarify that, Uncle Bob. Is she talking a head topic or what? Anyway, so I just keep listening. Thanks for your time.
But of course, another joke. What she's talking about is back alley abortions, and the pretzels, the pro-aborts would have you think that before Roe was decided, there were thousands or millions of back alley abortions every day. And it just isn't true. There's no statistics to show that at all. That's why you see the coat hanger prominently displayed whenever people talk about abortion.
Need to fact check that. Okay, go on. Thanks for your time. I'll keep listening.
All right, another Joe.
That's the irony of the pro-abortive rhetoric or narrative, is that they always want to talk about the pro-life men as being archaic and this mindset of misogyny, but they use rhetoric from 40 years to 50 years ago in terms of science, in terms of progress in medicine, and in terms of defining what a woman is.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible how that has got them so stuck on this crusade of aborting babies.
Yeah, well, I think I put my finger on it when in Joni's piece here that this is about women showing men you cannot be the way you used to be anymore. When I say jump, your response must be, yes, dear, how high? Because if I can kill your child inside my body, I can do any damn thing I want, and there's not a thing you can do about it. So it's I think that's really kind of the in-depth agenda of this whole thing. I'm an autonomous person. I am Superwoman. I hold the power of life and death right here in my own body. Get out of my face. I think that's what it's about, Jose. Okay, I've got another one here from, this is a disappointment from Marvick. I think we probably aborted enough here for a while. I'm going to go to what in a boxing match would be the main event. You know, you have several preliminary bouts, and this is a couple of heavyweights for the championship of tall tales. This is Ginger Crunden Cruz versus Lee Weber. And I mentioned Ginger Crunden Cruz used to be a newscaster for KUAM. She took off for, it must have been over 20 years. Now she's back as a paid campaign staffer for guess who? Lulian Guerrero.
Her weapon is verbosity.
Yeah, so she's had some high-powered federal jobs. Maybe Monday I'll talk a little bit about what she did while she was gone. But, you know, I suppose some people say, well, it's good that Ginger's back here because Ginger's really a good spokesman, looks great on TV. She's exactly what the all-in folks need. But I got a feeling there's one person that doesn't share that view. Crystal Paco San Augustine. Yeah. Who has been the prom queen for so long. But she may find out that her chariot is turned into a pumpkin when she walks outside. All right. I want to get into Lee's column a little bit. And it's called, Are We Electing Diamond Cutters or Coal Miners? And he said, received this note the other day from a friend and thought it an appropriate time to share it in my column, given we are only a few weeks away from primary elections. And then Lee lays this matter out. And then he asks several rhetorical questions. He says, look at the public service records of these new candidates asking for your vote for the first time. How much of their private lives have they devoted to public service? What have they given this community asking for nothing in return? Or what have they continued to ignore or turn a blind eye toward that really needs to be done? Things like the maternity ward at GMH, or for that matter, the entire hospital building. What about Simon Sanchez High School or George Washington High Gym? Then there's the Department of Corrections. How about the Guam Waterworks Authority and our incessant water problems? There are nearly daily text messages about water outages in one area or another and extreme variations in water pressure throughout the island. Or what about the failing generators at the Guam Power Authority? It might be time to resurrect that song, The Load Shedding Blues. And then he goes on to one that he probably liked to take back. As the saying goes on the Point's Tall Tales talk show, it's not what the elected officials have done, claim to have done, in rare instances accomplished, but rather what they have not done that really matters. Our island remains a diamond in the rough, etc. So he's pretty hard on elected officials and pro-American, etc. So then Ginger Cruz writes a rebuttal.
Was it really?
Yeah. And here's what Ginger says. This will be just like the Solace letter. It's going to require a lot of analysis to unlock the meanings that Ginger really includes here. She said, I read with disappointment the depressing editorial last Monday from Lee Weber. A rich businessman's take. So obviously there's something wrong here, because we know that anybody who's rich can't be any good, right?
The opening salvo is an ad hominem.
Exactly.
Always a great strategy.
Good strategy, yeah. Yeah. Very good strategy. A rich businessman's take, full of elitist disdain of someone who has never held elected office, like Ginger Crundon Cruz, but has worked for people who want to hang on to one, but who sits in the comfort of his fancy home. This doesn't even rise to the level of a cheap shot. It isn't even...
This is mud.
It isn't even an ad hominem attack. It's, here's this guy who's rich, and he's got a really nice home. If you're not jealous, you will be by the time I finish this column, because he's got more than you have. Why should he have more than you have? He's rich, and he lives in a fancy home. Therefore, whatever he says is just pure garbage. Someone who wants lower taxes for his wealthy friends and then blames the government for not doing enough, as if people in charge are purposefully working against him, when in fact they have spent the last 4 years working for him and for everyone on Guam. Wow, there are some things I could have done without. I wish they wouldn't have worked so hard for me when I had to stop out on Marine Corps Drive and listen to a National Guardsman tell me to wash my hands and wear a mask. All the times I couldn't go to Touré on a Saturday morning. All the time that I had to wear a mask that anyone who studied it knows does absolutely no good at all. All the times that I really felt empathy for people who are trying to make a living in business and had every roadblock thrown in their way by the governor. Yeah.
It was for your own good.
It was for us. She was working for us. I know of at least one highly successful businesswoman who stepped away from that comfort and fully committed herself to working 7 days a week for the people of Guam.
She doesn't live in her fancy house?
Would that have been Jane Flores?
No.
I know of at least one highly successful... No, Jane was never a businesswoman.
No, I don't think so.
No. One highly successful businesswoman who stepped away from that comfort and fully... Yeah, she's not living in a government house anymore.
No.
There's a carport beside it. She's pitched a tent out there.
She's donated her salary.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that was President Trump.
Yeah. She's donated her salary to the Salvation Army. She spent 7 days a week for the people of Guam. Going to all those cookie-pushing events, cutting all those ribbons. Hard work.
Line dancing.
Yeah. She used her skills as a nurse. Banker. Now I'm trying to kind of figuring out who it was. And a legislator to make tough decisions as Guam's governor. Decisions that saved lives as the pandemic hit us. Yeah, now, let's go back to the governor here who stepped away from comfort and fully committed herself to working 7 days for the people of Guam. You know, Lulian Guerrero was elected to the 28th Guam legislature. Did she finish her term? No, she bagged it in the middle of her term. Now, why would anyone who was elected resign in the middle of the term of the legislature? The reason was she got a much better job.
Oh, she abandoned the people of Guam.
Exactly. But she had a good reason because she made a lot more money at the bank than she's only making $55,307 at the bank.
Would that make her a rich businesswoman?
Yes.
Full of elitist disdain?
Yeah, yeah. And we know she lives in a really nice house because she didn't want anybody to build a house up near her house for foster kids. That would have.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That would have.
Yeah, not in my neighborhood.
No. That would have kind of taken the shine off that neighborhood.
Again, curmudgeon time. But she welcomed the road construction that's right next door to our house. That's going on right now.
Yeah. All right. So decisions that save people's lives as the pandemic hit. People are still dying. Ginger, people will continue to die from now until the end of time. Everyone on Earth now will die.
Well, it reduced poverty.
But I think the governor has given us some instruction on that about dying, right?
So if you don't die, you'll live.
Yeah. Let's hear it again, Jose.
So if you don't die, you'll live.
We had never figured that out until the pandemic came along. This was the kind of leadership that she provided for us during the pandemic.
So if you don't die, you'll live.
Yeah, man, that just really brightened up. It just lifted my spirit so high when I heard that. And while those early decisions didn't have an impact on livelihoods, it was about saving lives, which she did. And let's save some lives at Wrigley Field, Jose, and then we'll come back to this.
Get ready to save up and chow down with Pacific Points. Now you can redeem Pacific Points for Uno Go wallet credits and enjoy huge savings on food delivery. Order from over 80 restaurants and have it delivered straight to your door. Continue earning points when you fuel up at Shell, shop at Foodies, purchase IT&E prepaid load, and pay your monthly IT&E bill. Then get ready to claim your rewards. Learn more at PacificPoints.com. Pacific Points. Do more, get more.
Subway's Eat Fresh, Refresh brings you the sequel to the Sweet Onion Chicken Teriyaki. Enjoy the new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki. Delight your taste buds with tender, juicy steak marinated in the tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce and stacked high on toasted artisan Italian bread, topped with American cheese, green peppers, red onions, and drizzled with the tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce. The new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki is the height of food craveability. Give in to your cravings at Subway. Eat fresh.
Wrigley Field, and you know, I just thought of something, Jose. I'm sitting here in the stands in Wrigley. Weren't we all vectors at one time?
You're not the victim.
I'm not.
You're the victor.
I'm not the victim. I'm the vector. Yeah. This was how the governor saved lives. She put us in our places. Yeah. Okay, going on with Ginger's letter. Businesses can and are recovering, as are careers. And this governor has been pouring millions into businesses to help get them back on their feet. She is the first to lower taxes on small businesses to 3%. No help from the legislature there. And she has maximized federal assistance to help those in need. For those who want it, there is retraining so they can build careers in new industries that are now coming to Guam as part of the recovery and the military buildup. As voters look at the candidates, it's easy to engage in Guam's favorite pastime of crab syndrome and tear down those trying to pull us out of the bucket. You know, like, Lee Weber didn't start out as a publisher of the Daily News. He started out pretty close to the bottom of the ladder and was able to climb up to become the publisher of the Daily News, an executive for USA Today, and the publisher of the Honolulu Advertiser. So let's pull him. He just went too far there. He's rich. He sits in his nice house. Let's get the crabs to pull him down a little bit here.
I want to go further and say who provided the bucket and who put those crabs in there.
Yeah. All right. Now, the crab syndrome and tear down those trying to pull us out of the bucket. But I say it's time to be part of the solution. If you think you can do it better, now this is addressed to Lee, of course. If you think you can do it better, then run for office and experience the reality of working with limited resources and navigating reams of regulations. Yeah,
it's a good thing she's not running for office, because if any candidate told me that, I'd say that I'm not voting for you, because don't complain about your position.
Absolutely. Weber seems to suggest that voting for the other team would somehow solve our problems. Well, we know how to solve our problems. Let's kill more babies. That's the real solution, right? The other team was in charge for 16 years. During that time, people were not given their tax refunds. The island sank under a massive deficit, and 3 agencies went into receivership, which means the feds took over because we were incapable of managing them. The island languished. No new industry opened. Guam just treaded water and grew mold and weeds while some of our best institutions faded. We don't want leaders mired in ethics scandals, nor do we want leaders that have offered no solutions or those who have presided over historic failures and hold the same defeatist attitude as Weber. So Felix and Michael San Nicolas are all fellow travelers with Lee Weber, apparently, right? The current administration, in the face of the world's global disruption in recent history, saved lives, kept our ship steady, and has successfully pulled us out of that vortex.
Wrong.
New businesses are opening, roads are better, police and teachers are receiving more pay, and new ones are being hired. Our port is finally expanding its wharves. Renewable energy is steadily replacing old generators, and a measure set to pass in Washington will bring more funds and tax breaks to Guam to expand these efforts. It's in Washington. Wouldn't that be Michelson? That must be a misprint.
He's for the other team. No, he's not for the other team.
With over 96% of us vaccinated in foreign countries easing restrictions, our perseverance is paying off, and we are beginning to feel the promising future ahead. We made it through the storm. The best thing about Guam is ability to pull together and rebuild. We did it after typhoons Pamela, Paka, Pangsangwa, and other disasters. Each time our island became stronger. We want an island that's led by sharp, committed leaders. Sorry, guys, I already got a job. Sharp, committed leaders who understand the limitations of government and work hard to maximize what we have and lead us to a higher place. We want a governor and lieutenant governor who are honest, who wouldn't even think about having any dealings with the 19th floor, who are honest, real, and who love this island and its people. Leaders who actually work every day to make our lives better. We don't need diamond cutters who will just get rich off us, like Weber. We want leaders that believe in our people, ethical leaders, experienced leaders that have shown a steady hand in the worst of times, because those are the ones who will shine in the best of times. We don't need to look any farther than Lulian Guerrero and Josh Tenorio for a team that we can all depend on. Now, here's a little bit of the background of each. Ginger Cruz is a senior advisor to Lou and Josh campaign. I would have never detected that. Cruz is founder of and CEO of Mantid International. She is the former news director at KUAM and communications director under the last Democrat governor, Carl Gutierrez. She has returned to Guam after 20 years, during which she served as Deputy Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction and provided compliance and public policy support in the defense and diplomatic arenas.
Diplomatic?
Uh-huh. Okay, and then let's read up on Lee Weber's background here. Lee is a former president of public media organizations on Guam and Hawaii, former director of operations for USA Today International Asia, and a longtime business and civic leader on Guam. I don't see any political jobs there, and I don't really see much else as far as Ginger Crendon Cruz is concerned.
So Lee Weber is a businessman, and Ginger Cruz is just a political spinster.
Spinster.
Did I say spinster?
Spinner. Spinner. Yeah. Spinster would be somebody like...
Spinmeister.
Spinster would be somebody like Jen Psaki, who was divorced by Joe Biden.
Right. You know, just real quick, an aside here, for those who keep touting this 96% vaccination or something,
yeah,
just released today or yesterday, if you want to say August 11th, right? The CDC just put out these COVID-19 guidances. Those exposed to the virus are no longer required to quarantine. Unvaccinated people now have the same guidance as vaccinated people. And it says students can stay in class after being exposed to the virus, and it's no longer recommended to screen those without symptoms. Now, I want to get back to this. Unvaccinated people now have the same guidance as vaccinated people?
Well, I read somewhere, I don't remember where, that something like 98% of the people already have immunity, one way or another.
But she didn't put down the reason why 96% of the people are vaccinated, because their jobs are threatened.
Yeah.
They were told that they were not going to be able to come back to work if they don't get the jab.
Yeah.
That's not compliance in the sense that they were altruistic.
No. Yeah, and of course, not coming back to work is another part of the story. How many of them didn't have to come back to work during the pandemic, stayed home?
Exactly.
Talk about staying home in their nice houses and drawing their paychecks, right? Okay, let's head for Churchill Downs, and then we'll head for the finish line.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Joyce Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning shows.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-RGIO.
Okay, so here we are at Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. We're just about to wrap it up for another week here on Tall Tales. Feel sorry for Jose and I. You know, when we can't do Tall Tales, when we're not in communication with our international radio listening audience, you tailgaters out there, it is really tough on us. But somehow we grit our teeth, we clench our fists, we stiffen our upper lips, and we make it for 70 hours with no tall tales. And we come back on Monday at 1600 bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We've done it for over 4 years, and we're going to continue doing it for a long, long time. And as I mentioned, you may want to make sure that you're around on Monday, because we're going to open the store for Tall Tales T-shirts. And I'm kind of hoping that Colin Clark could post a picture of himself wearing his T-shirt on Facebook on Monday. That'd be a really nice touch, wouldn't it, Jose?
Sure would.
Yeah. Okay, I got somebody here who wants to help me proceed from Churchill Downs, and it's none other than Johnny Utah. So we go from Louisville, Kentucky, on a straight direct flight to Salt Lake City. Good afternoon, Johnny Utah.
Afternoon, Judge Bob. So, I was enjoying your conversation about socialism, communism in the beginning, and then you led into the whole abortion topic. And one word that popped in my head that I never hear anyone use, or don't really hear it from either side of the aisle on abortion, is a malthusium. I think I'm saying it right. Malthusium. The malthusium. I remember it from a long time ago when I was in college. It's weird, like this idea of like a population growth or control has to occur in order for food supplies, to stay the same. And it's a really demented way of thinking, but it's used in some cultures, if I'm not mistaken. Are you familiar with that word?
Are you saying Malthusian?
Yes.
Yeah, Thomas Malthus came because of Thomas Malthus' theory. Economics is referred to as the grim science, and this is Malthus's calculation. The population of the Earth increases geometrically. The ability of men to produce food increases only arithmetically. So the only time that people live very well is after there's been a pandemic that killed everybody, or there was a bloody war, etc., because the population tends to rise just up to the bare subsistence level. That's the Malthusian theory. So, of course, if you buy into Malthusian theory, then it makes a lot of sense to talk in terms of population control.
Abortion.
Yeah. Is that what you're talking about, Johnny Utah?
Yes, sir. You are one of the smartest men I think I've ever met on this planet, Doc. Or Doc.
Well,
I'm calling you Doc.
I'll tell you what makes me really dangerous, Johnny Utah. I'm not as dumb as I look. Pretty close.
No, so when you were started off with the socialist, communist, conversation, then you moved into the abortion topic. That jumped into my head. I remember it from a long time ago, and I started looking it back up a little bit for a second, and I was like, you know what? I think you probably would enjoy talking about this topic because it connects the two ideologies, but you never hear the abortionist or the so-called democratic socialists talking about this idea, because I think that the idea that they have is population control. It's not about rights. It's not about feminism. And feminism, to me, is fool's gold. It's tricking a lot of young women into becoming, self-martyrs for the socialist movement and giving up their, chance at eternity. Because, how else do you live in this life except through your children, right? Your children are what you pass on. That's the only thing you have to leave behind. Your money, your material things, none of those things matter. All that matters is your family. Am I wrong?
You're ringing the bell, Johnny Utah. Yeah.
And these guys using these logics of what Malthusian. I'm having a
Malthusian.
Yeah, they're using Malthusian logic, but they don't want to come out and say it. They don't, because it's not a nice way to describe what they're wanting people to do. Kill your babies, sacrifice your relationships, give your money to the state, don't have any personal property, and suck it up and take it because it is what it is. It's awful. But I've enjoyed your show. Thanks for having it.
Well, we enjoy your calls for all the way from Salt Lake City, Johnny. We're glad you participate.
Yes, sir. You have a good day.
Okay, see you later.
Yeah, just a real cursory read of that Malthusianism.
Mm-hmm.
It says that millions or billions have to die in order for the world to sustain itself, and eugenics tells us who it is that has to die.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And that's all those articles you read on what the UN is proposing,
Mm-hmm.
is proposing everything within those theories without saying what those theories are.
Exactly. Yeah, no, eugenics is a word that you don't hear very often, but if you raised dogs or horses or something like that, you would understand eugenics. If you're trying to raise race horses,
Specific breeds.
yeah,
Or even cockfighting.
even cockfighting, yeah. So you don't let breeding doesn't occur willy-nilly. You match males and females in such a way to produce a particular kind of offspring. So the theory was with eugenics, if we eliminate the ability to some of the folks to have children or too many, but enhance the ability of the really good people to have more children, we'll all be better off. We'll come up with a much better human race. So the smart ones, et cetera, will be encouraged to reproduce. Poor old Carrie Buck, we're going to sterilize her. And in the process, we're going to say 3 generations of idiots is enough. Oliver Wendell Holmes, U.S. Supreme Court case. Buck
Which
versus
was
Bill.
the vehicle that drove the creation of Planned Parenthood. And a lot of people do not know that history. Margaret Sanger was a follower of eugenics, followed what was happening in Germany,
Mhm.
and applied it to capitalism in the States and created Planned Parenthood specifically to control certain populations.
Mhm.
And we don't have to tell you who those populations are. We just have to tell you where those Planned Parenthoods were situated
Yeah.
in the inner cities.
Exactly. And then there's a link between Marxism, communism, and abortion, and that is that, especially the neo-Marxists, when they combine with Sigmund Freud, no restrictions on sex. Free love would be too restrictive. Anywhere, anytime, for any reason, etc. And of course, in order to make that work, what do you have to have, Jose? Abortion. Yeah. So the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics never had any problem with abortion for the right reason. But they had other ways of controlling the population, things like starvation, firing squads. It's a brutal thing, and it's amazing how Marxism, as evil as it is and as harmful as it is, still draws followers.
It's it's that alternative foundation of equalness and prosperity to Christianity, or to a foundation that isn't rooted in this world. And I'm not saying that to get all religious, but if you think about what it is that these Marxists perpetuate,
Mhm.
it's the fact that there is no goodness except for what we determine and tell you what is good.
Yes.
There is no other way to look at it. There's no other foundation. There is no other beacon of humanity but our definition.
Absolutely.
And we know we're flawed when we decide to determine what it is that's good or bad.
So then we go back to Shaylin. I don't know what Guan's future will look like, but I do know that the current political status and governing systems do not serve us. I don't know what Guam's future will look like or even what it should look like, but I do know it's going to be unlike anything we've seen before. So this, stuff like this that makes Marxism, just sliding stuff along like this on the floor. So, yeah, I see what she means there, We're kind of softening up the target as we go along. Okay, we got about 4 more minutes to go. I've got another article here. This one is by Marvik Kragarangan. It's another one about abortion, and I'll start it. And she's the publisher of the Pacific Island Times, a great magazine, a great journalist, somebody I really like. In fact, somebody I actually work for because I write column for that magazine. But here's what Marvik said. There's no such thing as, quote, pro-abortion. People who are pro-life are anti-abortion. But pro-choice advocates are not necessarily pro-abortion. Did you know that, Jose? Or anti-life. Several women on Guam who push for the right to privacy are mothers. Some doctors who endorse reproductive rights help mothers give birth. I would hope so.
Right.
But we're trapped in these judgmental characterizations, ignoring details and reducing our discourse to hysterical condemnation. Pro-lifers scream, murderers.
But some of those pro-lifers endorse and want to help women give birth. But some of these pro-lifers want to help to push for the right to privacy.
Yeah, so when I hear a sign on your front door, private property, no trespassing, keep out.
That's not what she's talking about, though.
No, of course not. Once again, it's the pretzel. I used to know what privacy meant, but I don't anymore. She goes on to say, no pregnant wakes up and makes a whimsical decision to get an abortion. It's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. I think you need to restudy that one, Marvik. No pregnant woman wakes up and makes a whimsical decision to have an abortion. I think we know of one woman who perhaps hasn't done it, but certainly would advocate it. No woman gets an abortion and leaves the clinic with glee, saying, yay, the baby's gone. I suspect that happens more than once.
There is a movement called Shout Your Abortion that does exactly that.
Yeah. And I've seen stuff on the internet where women wear T-shirts that say, I had an abortion, and have this image on the T-shirt. All right, it's time for me to say goodbye to our president. Here we go. Let's go, Brandon. See you on Monday.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Release the documents now. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. That from former President Trump in a statement late last night saying he will not oppose release of the warrant used to search his home Monday and the supporting documents, even though Mr. Trump says they were drawn up by radical left Democrats and possible future political opponents. Attorney General Merrick Garland briefly speaking out Thursday for the first time 3 days after the raid.
I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly.
Garland said it is his department's policy, where possible, to use less intrusive means than a search. The former president's attorney, Christina Robb, telling Fox's The Ingram Angle, the attorney general needs to explain why that wasn't the case on Monday.
I think this squarely falls on the shoulders of the Biden administration, and I want to see what they got, because I don't think they have enough for their actions.
A source has told Fox News it may have been a Secret Service agent recently posted to the Trump security detail that provided information to the FBI. Ohio's State Highway Patrol says officers have shot and killed a man who tried to force his way into the FBI field office in Cincinnati yesterday. He then led them on a pursuit and finally made a threatening move.
Did raise a firearm toward law enforcement, and shots were fired by law enforcement officers on the scene.
Lieutenant Nathan Dennis says the suspect, identified as 42-year-old Ricky Schiffer, died at the scene. Authorities say he may have been at the U.S. Capitol building during the January 6th incursion. The police officer who was shot in the head Wednesday night in Richmond, Indiana during a traffic stop has shown slight signs of responsiveness following surgery. But her police chief says Officer Sierra Burton remains in extremely critical condition. America is listening to Fox News.
Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts ad-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Trey Gowdy, the Fox News Rundown, Will Kane, Brian Kilmeade,